Somebody's trying to talk and we cannot hear you. You guys can type in the chat if the audio is cutting off. Right. So welcome everybody. Some announcements today. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking, because the audio obviously filters over. Let me see what we got here.
Coming Thursday. Talk. Oh, okay.
Is that Mara?
Okay.
Mara, is that you speaking? We're not hearing you clearly. If you want to type it in the chat, it's in, because it's not very clear. Okay, let's start now. Okay, so first announcement: we have incorporated as a 501c3 as of last month. We're gonna be a nonprofit association. This probably should give us a little more power to bring up stuff in the community. We will be making a formal announcement on the next meeting. There will be some people that you guys have seen in the meetings, such as Kevin Tucker, such as Tyler Rotterbaugh, and they're going to be part of our main team for this association, and we're gonna give you some of a little bit of what we're aiming to do, and what we're trying to what we aim to achieve with this association. Obviously, this has been a little rocky because of the pandemic, and we're trying to do our best, obviously. So there will be more information as we come, and there will be more formal announcements as probably next meeting. We need more presentations. We already got one from Daryl. If you guys have any other presentations, please let me know. I am hoping that all of you are either in Slack or Discord. I can put the invitations. If any of you still wants to join, just put it in the chat, and I'll go ahead and post it so you guys can join. The idea is that you can join the Slack channel or the Discord channel, and we're going to talk a little bit of Discord in a bit. I understand Mara posted something about a meeting. I will announce it in just a second. We couldn't hear you well. I'm sorry. Based on talking about the Slack and Discord, there has been some persistence to Discord. Since the Discord it's a little cumbersome. Not sure how it went for you guys at DEF CON, but DEF CON felt like I was personally lost. I will be posting the links in a minute. I was personally lost. Many of us were lost. So what we tried to do was basically put a channel. We didn't try to do what we did in Vegas, which is usually we'll meet and say, "Hey, go here," or "This is happening here." But it didn't feel like the experience was very was close to what we're all used to. I mean, the silver lining here is, I guess, everybody misses going to Vegas and seeing everybody, and it really sucked not to be there and see everyone. So now we can value more those trips that we do. We used to take for granted. So Discord turned into, and this had nothing to do with DEF CON. It has to do with the tool. Basically, it's cumbersome. We started migrating to Discord, and I'm not feeling the love for this tool, to be honest. So we're working on having a cross-post bot, but we're gonna keep on Slack as well. And I'm gonna post the link so you guys can join. But we're working on it because it feels like we're getting disconnected with this back and forth. The book that I mentioned for some of you is Blackout Wars, and this book will allow you to understand the context of the special event that we're doing at Hack Miami on August 29, and it has to be with EMP. EMP is a weapon that can basically fry everything that's electronic and lead to a major blackout, right? So this is there's been some chatter in the media. There's been some chatter in many other circles, and I decided to go out and recruit somebody. I was able to find somebody from a utility company, which is cool. He's not going to talk on behalf of the utility company. Obviously, we can't expect that to happen, but he's going to give us some good info of some of the efforts and what can we do as individuals, which is also a very important thing. It's not just what are they doing, what are we doing? Because they can protect the grid, but if everything in your house gets fried, you had to have a way to come back. It's like here in Florida when we lose power. We had generators, we have ham radio, we have all kinds of stuff. So this would be a good event for you to see how can we mitigate this type of threat. So you are all invited to this event, and then it goes with the invitation, which I'm going to be placing. We're going to be placing we are placing actually jobs in the job channel. We are obviously, I know that there are some people who are losing their jobs. There's some others that are trying to find jobs, and that's one of the main things we do here. We try to help you get hired or find any type of job that can get you by. Considering the situation that we're going through right now with the pandemic. There was some chatter yesterday about some new remote policies of some companies in Silicon Valley that imply that they will pay less to those who move, and some people are up in arms in it. I am, because I do believe that's a cap, and caps should not be. You should be paid for what you do, not for where you live. So that type of cap, I myself are not happy to hear about it. Hopefully other companies will not follow through with it. So, all right. So with that in mind, this meeting will be posted in the YouTube channel. And if you want me to add somebody, you can always email me at phack.org, and I will add them I'll send an invite to either Slack or to or Discord. And then let me actually talk about Mara. Mara said, let's see if we got it here. Mara, you want to try to speak and see if we can hear you this time, or?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, hi. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'll try to send a link. I'm still driving now.
Okay.
Silicon Valley ISACA organization is going to have Robin Bashcom talk about life science and medical devices. A lot of concern regarding cybersecurity and strategy. And she did a great job with the East Bay ISC Square chapter this Thursday. She's going to repeat the talk this coming Thursday. ISACA. It's usually from 6 to 7 p.m. It's only an hour. The ISC squared event was at least 2 hours. I'm not sure how she's gonna, you know, how she's gonna compact her presentation, but it's fabulous. I think it's very informative, resourceful, and I think if you care about health and the concern about security, especially on a lot of the medical devices, the needs in healthcare, especially if you're thinking about, hey, what area should I may want to focus in, because it sounds like there's going to be and is a significant need in that area for cybersecurity. I would go to the website and register. It's free. If and if you want CPUs, they basically pull 4 questions and you get CPUs out of it. It's only doing the live performance. Afterwards, they record it. If you're a member, you can get the recording, but you would not be getting your CPUs if you're seeing the recording of it. Okay, there's reference material on the ISC Squared East Bay chapter that has a lot of really good reference material. But anyway, again, go to the website. I will try to send the link when I'm not driving, but I am sort of stuck in traffic going over to the coast. So anyway, anyone has questions, feel free to shoot me off an email. My email is mij650@gmail.com. But I will try to put the link in the chat later this afternoon, while this meeting's going on. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
If you can send us the link, I will post it. Actually, I can send a message to those who are subscribed to receive messages and Meetup, so that way we can promote it. So thank you very much for the information.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, bye.
All right.
I'll go back on you.
Good. So I placed the Discord invite in the chat, and let me see if I can get the. Let me get the. I'll figure out how to put the Slack in it. So again, before I give the floor to Lennon, today we have 2 presentations. One is Lennon with cryptography and applications, and then we have Microsoft ATP. So let me actually give the floor to Lennon. Let's see, Lennon, where are you? Look you up. There you are.
I'm right here.
Yeah. All right, you're officially a presenter. Floor is yours, and thank you. And I'll be posting the Slack invite too. So thank you for being today here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me try to share my screen. Hope this time works. Please just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me present. It says loading. Okay, come on. Okay, let me get my notes and then we can start. Okay, it seems, yeah, you can all see my screen now?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about this. I'm going to talk about use learning enough cryptography for better securing your applications. The main goal for this talk is for people with a software engineering background or people that is just starting in cryptography to learn the basic concepts, because there is a lot of concepts in cryptography and some of them are very difficult. Some of them kind of overlap with some others, and it's very important to learn the difference, because at the end that impacts the security, right, of your application, of your data. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Leon Alevsky. I'm from Mexico. I'm working here in Bay Area. I'm a security software engineer. I do open source at Min.io, a local startup, and I have a very big obsession with cybersecurity. You will see that. So, okay, here, disclaimer, I'm not a cryptographer. So please, if you have a question about your production environment, please go and talk with your favorite cryptographer. This is just some stuff I have learned over the past 6 months for me working with cryptography, applied cryptography in applications. So, okay. So let's start by defining what is cryptography, right? Cryptography is the practice and study of techniques for secure communications against third party called adversaries. And we have the basic principles of cryptography that are confidentiality, which means your data can be only accessed by people that is allowed to do that. Integrity, which means you need to make sure the data is not tampered or is not changed. Authentication, it means that when you receive a message, you can validate that the original owner of that message or the people that generate that message is the one that say. And non-repudiation, which is basically once I send a message, I cannot negate that, right? I cannot say, I didn't say that. So this is the basic principles of cryptography. And to achieve this, there is many mechanisms or techniques such as cryptography, hashing, digital signature that will help us to achieve that, right? In this talk, I'm going to focus more on the first two, encryption and hashing. And digital signature is a whole topic that maybe we can talk a little bit at the end or maybe in some other presentation. But yeah, so the encryption, right? Let's start with encryption. So encryption is the process of converting the original representation of information known as a plain text to an alternative form called the ciphertext. And then only an authorized party can decipher that ciphertext and recover the original plain text, right? In general, what you need to know about encryption is, in general, there is two kinds of encryption, symmetric and asymmetric. And each one has like pros and cons, but what you just need to know is that symmetric encryption uses the same key for encrypting and decrypting, while asymmetric encryption uses two keys, right? One for decrypting, one for encryption. So this is the main difference. The next concept, because there is, when I mentioned there is many different concepts, people tend to mix them, and sometimes we assume, like, for example, encoding is a type of encryption, because when we apply the encoding, the result value, we cannot understand that, right? But it's a different thing. So encoding is the process of converting data to another format, and it's usually required for a number of information processing needs, like compiling, data transmission, or storage, or compression, or decompression. But the important thing here is that encoding is reversible. So you can switch between formats. So everybody can, if you get the base 64 representation of a string, you can go back, right? So this doesn't provide security the way we want. Another important concept is hashing. Hashing algorithm is a mathematical function that condenses data to a fixed size. The result is called a hash value, and sometimes hashing is referred as a one-way function, because when you, let's say, you want to get the hash representation of a big file or a text or whatever, you will get a fixed length string, and from that fixed length you cannot go back to the original content. This is that's the meaning of one-way function. Another important thing, as I mentioned, is the fixed length. So it doesn't matter how big is the file that you are going to apply the hashing function. You always gonna get the same size depending on what the hashing algorithm you are using. As I mentioned, this is not reversible, and this is deterministic, meaning if you give always the same input, you will get always the same output. So you can think of this as a fingerprint, right? And this is very useful, because sometimes in your application you want to compare files, but you don't want to compare the whole body of the file. So what you usually do is you compare the hashes. The same can be applied for passwords, right? On a platform, when a user logins or sign up, you as a developer, you will never store the plain text of that password. Instead, you will store a hash representation of that password. So the next time the user comes to your application, you will calculate the hash, and then you will compare, right? The next one is called obfuscation. This technique is start a little bit of a security layer, but again, it's not enough. So obfuscation is a mechanism for making something obscure or dark or very difficult to understand. And this is mostly used when the user has access to see the source code. For example, nowadays it's very common single-page applications, and application has a lot of logic in the JavaScript. So when you go into a server, when you do a request to a server, you download the application into the client using your browser, and you can see the whole source code. So usually people want to protect that, and they use obfuscation. So in this example, I have this JavaScript, and then I apply the obfuscation function, and I end with something like that looks like very weird, but still is code that can be executed by the browser. The thing with obfuscation is that it can be reversible, right? So usually this is very popular in CTF. You get an obfuscated code and you need to reverse engineering. And this can be also done in an automated fashion, but it's not call it security by obscurity. And finally, the last concept is data masking, which is very related to the previous one. But in this case, data masking is being used to kind of protect data or censure some pieces of information by replacing some pieces of information, right? The main reason for applying data masking to data fields is to protect data that is classified, like, for example, personal information that can identify you, or sensitive personal data, commercially, whatever, right? But the information need to remain usable, used for developer purpose or testing purpose. So, okay, now that we know this theory, let me talk a little bit more about the cryptography part. So in practice, cryptography is about choosing the right tool for the job. And when it comes to building and protecting our application, the most common tasks that we will face are encrypting data blob or a data stream, exchange secrets with a peer, verify that some data blob or data stream is not modified, that's integrity, verify that some data or data stream has been produced by someone in a specific, that authentication. We may also face generate a secret from another secret, that's key derivation, and also generate secret from low entropy values, such as a user input password. So there are out there many cryptographic mechanisms that will make our life very easy when it comes to application security, and we need to learn how to pick the right tool for the job. I'm not saying that we should completely ignore the theory and just jump directly into the practice. Theory is very important and we should learn it, or at least be aware of the different types of cryptographic primitives, which is another interesting concept. So I think there is more cryptographic primitives, but the ones that you most commonly use are pseudo-random permutations. And this is the case, for example, of AES, Advanced Encryption Standard. So this is the primitive that cryptographic scheme uses. Pseudo-random function, and we have, for example, SHA, and random oracles, which is the case of the hashing algorithm, SHA-256. Modern cryptography algorithms usually follow a more theory-based approach when it comes to achieve its goals and test the security. What does this mean? Like that means that they usually do that by reducing the security relative to the primitive they use. And it's very common to read things like this. Like, for example, the scheme X achieves the security goals A and B and C if the underlying primitive Y is in fact a K. What does this mean, right? This means that primitives usually have a condition in the form of a mathematical proof of a very hard problem to solve, like, for example, the prime factor of the representation in the RSA, asymmetric cryptography, or the discrete logarithm problem from the Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm. So therefore, if you want to break a cryptography scheme, you will first need to break the assumptions used by the primitives, right? If no one can do that, then it's safe to assume that the cryptography scheme is secure to use. So this is how it works in real life, right? People try to attack the primitives and break the assumptions. And of course, this will depend on what primitive are you breaking and what's the assumption. So, okay, enough about the theory. I will show some examples. Like, for example, let's say you in your application, let's say you have an application that calculates the HMAC signature of a message using a password provided by the user. This in the first example, this works, but there is a problem with this approach, which is calculating the HMAC is very trivial. With the help of a good dictionary, an attacker can easily brute force the password. And if he succeeds on obtaining the original secret, he can impersonate the user of your application. So how can we fix this? How can we make it more secure? We need to add an extra step. So in order to make the job for the attacker more expensive in terms of time or computation and memory resources, the recommended approach is to use a key derivation function or a password-based key derivation function when deriving a key from the user. So just make sure in your application that whenever you receive a piece of information that you are going to include in some cryptographic process, run the password-based key derivation function. And this is an example. It's actually pretty easy to do it in Go. Go has this crypto library that you can implement in your programs, in your applications, and you can do it like in one line of code, right? And the takeaway for this example is that in general, we have to distinguish between deriving a key from a high entropy source, like a cryptographic key, or from a low entropy source, like a password. If it's a password, there is the password-based key derivation function that we can use. And the main goal for this is make it difficult for an attacker to break your application, right? And make it useful for you, for your users, to generate whatever process that your application needs. The next example is the data integrity in your application. And preserving data integrity is a crucial part when working with information. The easiest way to achieve this is using encryption. But however, sometimes you don't want to encrypt the information because encrypting and decrypting is a expensive operation, and you only want to you only are interested in the integrity part. Then the most straightforward solution for this is HMAC with random oracle. And in this example, this is what I'm showing, right? That there is a shared secret, and the user Alice is sending a message, and then is calculating the signature based on that shared secret. And if he intercepts that message, of course, because of the message is traveling in plain text, she can modify the information on that message, but then the signature will not match. So with this, we ensure that integrity. And again, in Go, it's very easy to do this. We have the HMAC library, part of the native libraries, and you can also do this in 2 lines of code. So all these functions, I'm going to put it on GitHub in case you are more interested on looking at it. But it's very easy, right? And then the last one is data confidentiality, right? Basically data encryption. And for this, we have many options. So here I'm showing we have a user, we have a piece of data, which is the hello world file, and then a key, and we want to somehow run an encryption process. And then if a malicious user comes and see, the data will make no sense, right? Because he cannot read it because he doesn't have the encryption key. So here we need to consider that usually symmetric cryptography schemes are better for encrypting data or data blobs or data stream versus asymmetric schemes because of performance advantages. The recommendation here is to use a thing that is called authenticated encryption or authenticated encryption with associated data. So here in this example, I'm using AES GCM, but you can also use another one that is called SHA-20. Authenticated encryption with associated data will in generally provide the confidentiality and also authentication. So this is why it's better to use this kind of cryptographic scheme that use plain AES or DES or whatever other mechanism that only encrypt the data. And yeah, this is the example of how to decrypt the data. So can you see it's very, very, very easy to do it in Go. And yeah, the summary for these examples and for all the talk that all the stuff I was talking is the main goal is to learn how to pick the right tool for the job, right? Once we know the requirements of or the nature that we want to achieve, we can select what is the best tool. Don't use user-provided keys directly in your application. Instead, always derive new keys because you cannot trust what the user is giving, right? So we need to use key derivation to create more secure cryptographic keys. And the third one is there is most of the time a ready-to-use best practice solution for the things that you want to do. So don't implement your own cryptography, right? There is a lot of good resources, a lot of code that has been very formally verified that works and is mathematically proven, that is free to use and you can implement in your solution, in your product. And yeah, as I was saying, learn the difference between encryption, hashing, encoding, obfuscation, and data masking. And base 64 is not encryption, right? So this is very important to achieve security in your applications. And here are the resources that I've been reading during the creation of this presentation. And yeah, I think that will be all from my side. If you have some questions, please ask. If you have some feedback, some comments, very welcome. And thank you all for listening. And thank Rod for this space.
Hey, thank you, Lenin. There is a question from Day. What is the difference between AES GCM and AES?
GCM, I don't remember exactly what it means, but what I remember is the way the process, the mechanism they apply when processing each blocks. So AES is a work in blocks, and they applied a different cryptographic permutation on that block. So I think GCS apply a slightly different process. So yeah, I don't completely know the details of the algorithm, the cryptographic scheme, but most of the difference that you will see is like the way they achieve the way you will see some changes in the primitives, right? Or the way they do different things. Like for example, SHA-1 and SHA-2 is two different families, but SHA-2 is the difference between SHA-1 and SHA-2 is the way they calculate the internal state. So in AES and AES GCM, is something very similar.
Okay, there is a comment from Ray. If you can please display the resources page again.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, it's a, okay, yeah, this is very basic material that has like a very basic foundations, but it helped me a lot to clarify some concepts. And every time I forget like a concept, I go back and read again and again. So there is this material, and also in Coursera, I think there is a course called Cryptography 1 and 2 that is I recommend it a lot, because you will learn more in detail, like a more formal education of the basic foundations of cryptography. So there is a lot of resources out there to learn this thing. And again, if you want to do applied cryptography, which is the thing I'm working right now, again, I think it's not necessary to learn in very deep the mathematical concepts. So it's just enough to identify the right tool for the job, as I was saying, and yeah, you can protect your data, right, or your application.
Hey, Lenin, was there really quick? You mentioned you can go and look at this. There's a place where we can learn this. What was that? What is it again? And what link is it? Where you can go learn this?
Coursera.
Yeah, you can go learn this, how to do cryptography in a basic. Where is that you were mentioning? Where do we go and get that?
I don't have it here. But I can update the presentation and put there the course. I think is free.
Okay.
It's a free course, and it's a very complete. It has like 60 videos, something like that. Yeah, so I can update it and put it here.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Just put it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Somebody put it there.
Thank you,
Marco.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Because we had to move on to the next presentation. This was a great presentation. Thank you, Lenin. As always, you always bring great content, so you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you very much.
Of course, okay. Man. Of course.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. Let's see, Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right.
I'm gonna send you as a presenter. Let me find you. There we go. Okay. So Brian, you are a presenter now. So if you wanna. Yep. So today we're gonna have Bryan Powers. He's gonna talk about Microsoft ATP Defender. I know Brian from quite a bit of time. Brian is a long-time cybersecurity presenter, and I work with him actually at a military contractor back then when we were doing cyber ranges, and he's awesome, and I'm sure his presentation is gonna rock. So Brian, take it away.
All right. Thanks for having me, Rod. It's been a long time. You haven't changed a bit. I've gotten a lot of gray hairs. I've had 2 sets of twins since I've seen you last. So I think I've aged twice the amount since I've seen you. But thanks for having me. I wanted to go over some. Also, I wanted to thank you for the EMP presentation coming up. I've got a lot of interest in that topic from history in the field, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So let's go over some of the things that I've been playing around with, and I like open forum. I don't necessarily have a long time. There's a heavy thunderstorm, and I'm hoping the power doesn't go out. It went out earlier on me. I do have a generator, but let's try to get through some of this material, and please throw some questions at me and interrupt me as much as you want. But the best I can do is give you a little bit of an outline and a walkthrough. Some of this is production, so I really can't get into much of it. But what I can do, it should be kind of cool. I'm hoping for. So what's really taken my breath away with advancements in Microsoft's Defender ATP platform is their investment. They bought a company back in 2017, 2016 for about $100 million that really launched this machine learning and artificial intelligence arena, where their cloud-based tenant world, and I don't know if you're familiar with their new subscription model, Microsoft 365, where they're merging all of their organizations into, Azure Online, like Azure Active Directory Online for free, essentially for most organizations, and then bringing you in to the cloud more frequently. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you're familiar with the JEDI contract. That's a $10 billion contract that was awarded. I think they're still fighting about it. But the Defense Department decided to give this contract over to Microsoft, and it kind of makes sense, and I'm hoping I can explain to you some reasons why. Microsoft has been in the business for a long time, and everybody that's protected their software has leveraged a lot of where they made a lot of mistakes. And over the years, Microsoft has grown their platform into what I'm going to walk you through today. But before we do that, let's talk about where we are. So it's first of all, it's Windows Defender antivirus. The biggest problem I think Microsoft has right now is it's just, first of all, not done yet. They're building the platform into endpoint management, and endpoint management is all encompassing. And endpoint management from the cloud means they're going to manage all of your systems from endpoint management, baseline configurations managed from Azure, and gives you the ability to hybridize this configuration management from the cloud and possibly on premises or both. And that model that they're promising is kind of half-baked. It's not ready yet. It's not even fully implementable under the current release schedule until the end of next year with this next release of Windows 10. So where we are is sort of beta release stuff, but it's really cool. And all I'm going to only really be able to show you today is nothing that interacts directly with the machine, but what you can do to evaluate threats, and then the hypotheticals on what you can do to deter them. So I'm looking at and also this presentation is a little bit more designed for enterprise admins and security admins. And we're going to evaluate some high-level functionality and look at the antivirus features and just barely touch the surface. I can't go into the full features of advanced threat protection because, it's akin to these hydrochloroquine tests that are going on. They say it helps, but all the tests that are going on, they're not using zinc and they're not doing the pre-test. They're not doing it pre-infection. They're waiting until you're on your death's door. So the full suite of services that Microsoft ATP provides, these tests aren't really, these services aren't really fully implemented in the evaluations that are being performed today. And when I say that, I'm referring to, for example, MITRE. MITRE ran a series. MITRE is a nonprofit organization that runs, I'm sure you're familiar with them. And forgive me, I'm a little nervous. This is my first time in front of you guys, so treat me kind. And also interrupt. It makes me feel great when you guys interrupt. MITRE has been around for a very long time. They're a nonprofit, and every year they do a very deep dive battle with all the top antivirus applications out there. And Microsoft did pretty well, but they didn't include all of the suite of services that Microsoft has to help prevent the attacks that MITRE threw at the software, the antivirus software. So let's get into a little bit of what they offer. So the full suite offers this cloud-based email filter solution that embeds directly with Outlook. It also helps you through Edge today to identify you on your network as an individual in your domain and protects you against with behavioral analysis. If you click on a link and you try to log in, it'll protect you not only because it knows you, but it's got a safe link component that'll identify identify the link as a bad link, and not at the network layer block that link on Edge, and then train all the other Edge browsers in your tenant to block that particular URL. So advanced threat protection for Office, behavioral analysis through Outlook, and then cloud-based endpoint behavioral, cloud security, threat intelligence, managed detection and response, and then Azure. You're able to integrate directly into Active Directory as well. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this platform, but you know, behavioral analysis, I'm constantly receiving notifications on people and what they're doing and attempts from various locations around the world, whether they're logging in through a VPN or if they're on tour. It's pretty powerful in its capabilities. But let's take a minute and look at the platform. So the organization that I'm working with right now doesn't have the product implemented, and I've run a couple of test scenarios for them. And I wanted to walk through that with you now. So here's what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot to it. But when you get down to the dashboard for your threat and vulnerability management, your main goal here as a security administrator for the most part is to keep your exposure scores down, identify systems that are at risk. But if you have enabled the capability to, through one of several methods, reach out and manage your systems, whether it's through Configuration Manager or if you have configured what is available today through Endpoint Manager, configured your systems to be managed through Azure, then you can actually reach out and update the machines remotely. So here's the dashboard, your exposure score, likelihood of breaches to occur, value, related alerts discovered on the device, and let me show you, I'm currently logged into a machine that's hybridized, and I just want to walk you through some of the cool features before we talk much more about it. I hear some people dropping off, so let me see if I can capture some inspiration. All right, so this machine I'm currently logged into, it's hybrid managed, so it's an Active Directory domain controlled machine that's updated very frequently. It belongs to a update service, configuration manager service. And if you've never been in this platform, it's got a pretty neat feature where you can check out timelines. And the timeline will go back as far as you want it to. 1,000 days is typically where it's set. And you can gather any level of granularity you want. So if I want to see from the cloud any little bit of detail that's happened on this machine, all I have to do is highlight a chunk of time. Hope that my VPN doesn't crash, and I'm able to navigate through. I can set up alerts for different types of behavior, escalated privileges, or specific types of applications. that are not permitted. I can even set up controls through different policies that we'll walk through in a second. So this is one of my favorite application features, but you can also, now this is just the passive mode, but you can still initiate things like a live response, where I'm able to, from the browser, set up a console, a command line console directly to my managed host. So pretty robust system all in all for what it offers. Now, I haven't even really talked about the capabilities with virus protection yet. We're just looking at the features for auditing and viewing the systems and their resources. So those are two of my favorite features of the tool. Now, vulnerabilities, you can have, I think the theoretical limit on this is not yet really discovered, because you can provision it in a number of ways. But one of the things that I find most valuable is their ability to leverage new and emerging threats from all tenants. So literally any Microsoft tenant that's out there, if they've found a new 0-day or some kind of vulnerability, they're able to share that across all tenants relatively near real time. So it's fairly quick in that respect. I've seen them flag, for instance, the last CVE that showed up with Chrome, it was out the same day, probably within hours of it being posted. So I'm actually pretty impressed with this tool. Let's see here. Now, one thing I haven't been able to set up for this particular client yet is the very powerful remediation feature. And that's what I was hoping to be able to provide you today. I was working on it this afternoon. There's a lot of missing parts to it for this org. The remediation function gives you the ability to set up different tiers within your company or for the company you're working for. You can establish a security tiered system or embed functions here for patching and security updates with your help desk. That involves, strictly patching. And tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you can provision those responsibilities in various levels of functionality. Software inventory across your organization is also pretty fantastic. At a glance, real time across your company, one portal. And now, I think one of the most important things for a lot of organizations is identifying that, this stuff comes with a $59 a month subscription, and it's less if you're E5 or a college or an educational institution, right? So here's your subscription model. And so if you're an E5 subscription, you're able to receive all of these features, at that cost, and then an additional $20 a month per user. And each user has up to 5 licenses for each machine, for 5 different machines, and that includes Linux, Apple products. And yes, this antivirus solution does work with Linux on various file systems fairly well. So we're talking about features: host-based, host intrusion, host-based intrusion detection, protection, detection. Pretty decent tool for the money. The full disk encryption capabilities are all manageable through here. And again, this is just what we're looking at on the screen, is primarily just the security center features. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the subscription for E5 and what autopilot or Intune, what these terms represent. But with the Microsoft 365 subscription, you receive the ability in this E5 subscription to utilize, one license and be able to deploy through the cloud to you basically can send your user a laptop and an email address, and autopilot, this platform will perform the rest of those features. So the configuration is all policy driven, as it would be in an Active Directory domain controlling world. So feel free to jump in there with any kind of questions that you may have. But your endpoint security baseline configurations are sort of what you'd find in Active Directory. What they're doing is provisioning out things like network time protocol, and they're throwing them into your security baselines. The things that would typically be baseline configuration items, they're moving them into security baseline configurations, and they're kind of moving away from this Active Directory domain controlling on-premises idea, and they're moving into, or they're actually really trying to move organizations away from even a hybrid managed idea. It would appear it looks like it's in their future business model, even from some of the things I'm reading. There's a gigantic push for many organizations to move into the cloud. And I'm receiving a lot of calls for disaster recovery. It's another reason I'm really interested in the EMP brief that's coming up here pretty soon. But as I was mentioning, the antivirus application is just a small component of the overall advanced threat protection tool, and it marries with many features. It marries with information protection. It marries with data labeling across different platforms, and this tool called WIP, for example, which prohibits you from copying and pasting across different types of applications. It's pretty interesting. It breaks a lot of things too. It can be frustrating in that regard, but I'm seeing a lot of push to move many clients in this direction. So, one of the reasons I reached out to Rod was just to see what the interest was for my own sake. I was interested to see how many people were really, kind of motivated into learning more about this on their own before I spent a lot of time investing myself in this technology to determine whether or not I was interested in mastering it. I find that I can make anything work within it that I need to, but I'm not necessarily a master yet, right? That would take a little bit more work on my part, but it is quite unique. It's not that challenging to deploy. As a matter of fact, I started to set up a deployment locally to try to walk through with you guys quickly, but it failed, of course. So I'm unable to do that with you, unfortunately. But I wanted to show you what are the challenges. Oh, I see some questions popping up, but I'm missing them. Let me see if I can find those. Anybody want to? The other thing is I'm a link.
I can read you the question. Just it says, what are the challenges when moving from traditional AD versus, I guess, Azure AD hybrid infrastructure to a more pure E5 Azure only environment?
Dude, I'm so glad you asked that, man. They don't merge any policies. They don't have policies, man. So if you're and also you have to query Azure AD and your on-premises AD. They don't marry one-to-one. You have to write queries, and those queries are complex, and it's driven by this thing called AD Connect, and that's a whole course in and of itself. And the permissions, just to have the permissions work for the software, you have to be a local domain enterprise admin. You have to be a global owner for your E5 account, which means if you walk into a company and you want this to work, you have to you have to be the owner, or you have to have owner level permissions to get this thing to work right, and it's a pain, you know. So I find that if you end up in a situation where like me, where you're dealing with clients, man, make sure they know to think about it ahead of time. As a matter of fact, Microsoft set up a whole framework to try to sort out this problem ahead of time. And I've got a list. You know, kind of where it goes wrong. They built a whole framework around the idea of that question, because this client, oh, it's terrible. So, having so many different deployment types from Azure to your endpoints, you have at least 3 different ways you can manage your endpoints. Hybrid, straight Azure, or co-managed, which is from on-premises. You walk out the door and now you're on your own network, but it's managed by either or, and both. So it's a very convoluted environment to try to master. But in about 1.5 years, when they've got the environment complete, it'll be hopefully a lot easier to deal with. In my opinion, Microsoft has 0 credibility. What was that? I missed the question again.
Hey, Daryl, would you want to ask the question, or I can read it?
Yeah, and again, to Rob and to Brian, this is really very good information, because I've been actually struggling for many months to contact Microsoft for this, because my work and my guys are very impacted by this. I'm not sure if anybody from my work is on this too, but first and foremost, Brian, would you mind sharing that website that shows the breakdown of the license? Because I am a state and education entity, so we are looking at G3 to G5, but actually we have something called academic, like there's G3, G5, E3, E5, A3, E5. So we are academic, so we have A3 to A5 upgrade, and your page that you shows that comparison would be awesome. If you can share that in this Word document.
I had to go through all of that. Why don't you call me directly? Because I have a whole lot of information.
Yeah, please. If you and I can connect offline, that would be awesome. And
yeah, absolutely.
I would love that favor.
Yeah, I don't want that to go to waste. That's one of the reasons. That's another reason I want to do this too. Is I did so much work on that in particular. I don't want it to go to waste. And if you can use it, the A5 and E5 are very similar. But your state has a contract, has a state vendor, and that state licensing vendor, they're obligated to work with you. And whoever did that purchase, they have to give you that guy's information or that gal's information, and you should be allowed to contact them directly. But I can explain to you the hurdles I went through and give you the licensing documents that I saved. Dude, I spent 3 days and nights reviewing all of the licenses to understand this convoluted issue. What it boils down to is you need a license for the machine, and you end up needing a license for the user, unless you use Intune for education and you do it correctly, which is the way that Microsoft wants you to do it from the cloud. And all state-run organizations want to keep their bloated IT infrastructure. This is a $5 to $6 million IT infrastructure, annual budget just for their IT infrastructure. So they're never going to come down off of that platform. So they're kind of forcing me to help them along, but they don't really want change. So it's a very convoluted issue. But I'm more than happy to help you out, man. I got a lot of intel on that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be a huge favor. Yeah, awesome. If you can connect. Thank you, Rob, for bringing Brian on this, man.
Of course. But Brian, I have a question. Is this running? Is this an agent that you have to deploy in addition to everything else, or?
Well, yeah. Let's take a second and look at the endpoint. It has a sensor that runs locally, and it is an agent, right? So it's this security center agent, right? So I ran a query of it to make sure it was still running, and so this query, I ran the security center query sense. And here it is. It says, all right, hey, it's running its own process. It's not stoppable. You can't pause it. and it ignores all attempts to shut it down. So this, in this instance right here, on this machine, it's very unique because this organization runs a primary called Cisco AMP, and Cisco AMP is a great question. Cisco AMP costs like $80,000 a month, and they can't move away from it for some of the features that they use at a network level. And so it's interesting, but I was able to talk them into running it in passive mode so that they could learn from the experience of what Microsoft offers. So they're trying it out, and it turns out that if you want to use all of the other features, you have to use Windows antivirus first. For example, the other behavioral analytics sensors, all of the cloud-based analytics, the other threat intelligence features, the neural network behavioral analytics stuff that will segment an entire network if it feels that it's in danger. Those type of things, those managed detection and response, that part of ATP when it's configured correctly, that threat response mechanism, those things, you need to have ATP antivirus running as your primary. And Microsoft's made it very clear right here. You can turn it off and run any antivirus. This is probably a class action suit that took them there. You can run any antivirus you want to. These are, do you want to run it? Yes or no? These are the repercussions. Maybe I can bring this site up.
So does this have any relation with Sentinel, or is this a different interface?
On the machine or in the cloud?
From the management perspective.
Well, so overall, the management perspective is this. Microsoft Endpoint Management Admin Center. And in the future, it's all going to be Endpoint Manager. And that's where they're moving towards for all endpoints. But then right now, it's broken down into Security Center and further into the ATP Defender portion. But in the future, it's strictly going to be Endpoint Manager Security Center in particular.
I see. This is pretty interesting. Thank you for presenting this. And I'm sure this cost a lot of money too. This doesn't look like it's SMB friendly.
No. You can set this up with the E5. You can get yourself an E5 account and set this up on your own. Get a trial, get an E5, run a couple of virtual machines, set up some stuff local, and I mean, they give you a $200 a month credit. If you have your own company, I established my own company, so I'm an owner, and I'm just running through my family members and continuing different trials through my family members. So it really works. It really works well in that regard. I set up so here's another really cool thing. Configuration Manager, for example. You can set up Configuration Manager if you're familiar with that suite of services. It's a very good platform for managing entire organizations. You can configure that for a cloud based platform as well, and you can configure it with the cloud management gateway, so that it can manage your cloud systems. It'll manage all of your Azure assets, your Azure assets. So when somebody walks out of your building, no matter what they're connected to, they don't even need a VPN. You're still going to have a connection through 443. It's a pretty amazing system. So you save on any VPN costs. You're leveraging, SSL 2A PKI, and it's legitimately managing your installations of updates and different. Especially now with COVID and people working remotely, they're really making advancements in this technology. But
I like the terminal. The terminal when you did the remediate or action, I think it was, that you were able to open the terminal on the client. That was pretty cool. It reminded me, I think Carbon Black has something similar.
Oh man, I'm so disappointed because I really was excited to show you the full remediation features, because you can drill down to where you can install MSIs and different applications directly on the system, but there's a lot more work that has to be done with this tenant in order for that to happen.
Here's another question. With Defender ATP, does Microsoft provide direct support with the implementation, malware analysis, and forensic, or this is done by a Microsoft authorized reseller?
Oh, that's all you, and they will help you. That's all based on you. All of the other tenants in the world that are contributing to this machine learning and artificial intelligence beast that they have under the hood. And you can call them for direct support. They're investing $1 billion a year into this infrastructure to become best of breed. A long time ago I lost all faith in them, but I've through this process I have regained any sort of through this process I have kind of regained any faith lost because of what they've accomplished. With respect to cloud-based endpoint management. There are some Ignite presentations, and I'll make this presentation flow available to you. But there are some Microsoft Ignite presentations made available in the last year that walk you through, these beta released features that they're moving to market rapidly. The subscription models are by far the way to go. And the government, the reason why JEDI is a $10 billion project that is going to Microsoft, it's already approved in DoD, by the way, is because of this implementation. This implementation where you can push updates from the cloud remotely, securely to endpoints across any network, across any boundaries, is by far probably the coolest thing that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, this looks like that at one point in my career I administered a lot of endpoints, and this looks like it would have helped me save a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I wished I had bookmarked a couple of these. Oh, here might be a good part, but I haven't bookmarked. So currently, where they are, they don't have the full endpoint management integration available, where you could basically RDP into an endpoint from anywhere. But what they do have is a desktop analytics with the ability to pivot into real time to view what the users got going on their system, and to uninstall, add features, and it's pretty intense for endpoint management. It's pretty intense. So they're integrating help desk and also the features of security engineers, right now as we speak. I think I lost my VPN. Yeah, my VPN's down.
Oops.
Yeah. No worries. So, but with that, that was the demo. Yeah. So we'll see if that comes back online.
Anybody has any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, I have a question. If it's okay. It's pretty cool that you mentioned, because in my previous job I was running EC2 instances, and the endpoint protection I put, which is in of course purely cloud AWS mode, was Trend Micro, and I know Trend Micro and CrowdStrike runs pretty much intense as a very powerful EDRs in their cloud environment. Now, just to take a step back, here at my work, we have Defender ATP. Of course, this what I took over from my work at the workstations level. And so once we go cloud, and should we stand up our EC2 instance, is Defender ATP also has the same capability to go EDR, just like in comparisons to what Trend Micro CrowdStrike is, or is Defender ATP more best kept as the local level as in-house, workstation-based endpoint. I'm not sure even if it, to my prior question that I posted, even if it is considered a full-blown EDR. So I'm kind of in a dilemma with that, and I thought you could fill me in, because when I ask this question to Microsoft, they give me like a hail sales pitch, which doesn't help.
Yeah, they're not there yet. No, they're not there yet, but I think they will be. And what they're doing is actively building problems for their competitors, and they're going to get sued. I guarantee it. I'm already seeing it with some of the things they're doing. They're built. I don't think maybe they're not doing it on purpose, but with the new releases, they're either they're cutting corners or something, because you know I'm noticing that, for example, Tetra is Cisco's AMP's offline scanning implementation, and it will destroy your system if you try to leave it implemented with Defender, even in passive mode. So, there's some things that are starting to not play well with the later releases of Defender anything, and it's just kind of interesting. But they're trying to be the best of breed, and they're working really hard to elbow people out. So I wouldn't be surprised if they catch up with Trend Micro. I think Trend Micro is the best at EDR right now, but one of the best. But these guys will catch up. You'll see them catch up. I mean, this is Microsoft. Microsoft knows Microsoft better than anybody else.
Right. When the reason I asked this, right, because if you look at the state level of California, they are very strongly promoting CrowdStrike. And yes, I did use Trend Micro, and I agree Trend Micro is very well established. Yeah. And yeah, the reason I asked this was because there is a lot of I'm not sure rumor or enough evidence out there. Microsoft has to go out there and just throw things out there to compete. And if it's a product not geared, then there's an issue.
Yeah. You'll see things start to break eventually. I guarantee it. And then Trend Micro will start spending resources to update their software to conform. It'll get messy. Probably because the next release of Windows that is reported to be, and I had to build a Gantt chart about this. And the next release is due like November of next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that release is supposed to be fully capable of supporting the full suite of services available with endpoint management. And the first version of the full suite of anything is never going to work very well. So I would assume by 2022 February into
that's what. Come on, bro. We have a 0-day win down.
Exactly. But it's worth looking at, man. This is a serious contender. $1 billion a year is no chump change. That's one of the reasons I was excited to try to present this and get you guys on board with this stuff.
Cool.
Show you some stuff I've seen.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to connecting with you. I don't want to monopolize the time, but Rod, if you can connect me with Brian, that would be awesome, brother.
Do what? Sorry.
Oh, I don't want to monopolize any more time, but Rob, if you can connect me with Brian, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. I don't think Brian is in Slack or Discord, but I can give you his LinkedIn and you can talk to him.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Phone number, email, Brian, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. All those things, Rod. If you can hook them up, and also let me get those links. I'll make sure I sign up. My wife's waiting for me. The thunderstorm has got them stranded, and yeah.
All right. So it looks like we have come to the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you got the link for joining Slack and Discord. Please make sure you join and continue the conversation. Keep engaged. And is that send me? Okay, I will send you my email right now. And yes, guys, keep the conversation. Stay in Slack and stay in Discord. Please give us feedback. Again, I don't know what to make of this Discord thing. It's been a disaster, quite frankly. And I've been thinking about even rolling it back. but please stay in touch, and we already have a meeting for September. We have a meeting for October. We have Daryl presenting in October, and then remember we have the EMP attack preparedness on August 29. So I will see you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Brian, I sent you my email, that Word document. If you don't mind, also email it to me. That would be awesome.
Okay, no doubt.
Yeah, I kind of like it the way you laid out because, like, you know, I was saying Microsoft is a very large enterprise and they make it so complicated that all these products they have, it's all different places. And I know they like to enterprise themselves so large, and when they try to compete on security level, they have all these cracks that they create. So sometimes it's really a big yes, trying to understand them. So, and I like the way you did your Word document, very well structured. So that helps me out because you know my dilemma, right? I was always a Linux guy, so I'm not a Microsoft guy. So now I'm picking up Microsoft in my new job being a Microsoft shop. It's a challenge.
I mean, Microsoft just bought. They bought Skype, LinkedIn. They're using for the latest Edge. They're going to use Linux for their kernel, I'm sure, here pretty soon. You know, I mean, it's just a matter of time. Did I cut us off early?
It's all right. We were over 40, almost an hour.
They booked out LinkedIn. Wow.
Yeah, they bought LinkedIn. I'm sorry, Rod. I thought we were over.
No problem.
Well, they're trying to buy TikTok, right?
What's that?
Lord. They're trying to buy TikTok. What a nightmare.
Oh, I know.